Chris, I know you've been live vlogging this Meng case involving the daughter of the Huawei founder, who is the CFO. And I
Correct.
just wanted to try to break this down for people who are out there. But before I do
hmm
that, I just want to introduce you a little bit to all the people
Okay.
who will be watching. You're a
Great.
person who's spent 10 years after college in China. You did everything. I mean, you were a golf
Right.
professional. You worked for Mercedes-Benz, a lot of large organizations. You have a lot of experience. And now
Right.
you're the managing director of APP Professional Solutions. Is that correct?
APP Marketing Solutions, but correct.
Marketing.
Yeah, it's it.
All right, excellent. So, in terms of live logging, I noticed you probably have formed some impressions. It seems that the court proceedings were a little bit of a surprise today with the first witnesses, Mr.
hmm
Yep, indicating kind of confusing things. He understood some things, didn't understand other things, some omissions in his notes and things like that. What was your
Right.
overall impression?
The big impression that I got is that there was, seemingly, I think the officer tried to portray that there was a lot of confusion as far as what the actual proceedings, how it was going to go down. And for example, it was actually a very simple task that they were given. For instance, this is an extradition, case. They had a warrant for the arrest from the United States. In precedence, whatever happened before, typically they would go onto the plane, arrest the individual, or wait until that individual comes off.
Was there any kind of mention about this kind of strange things about that originally her arrest warrant read that she was being arrested for trading with Iran, which is
Right.
not a criminal. It's not a criminal charge in Canada because Canada does trade with Iran, despite the sanctions that were in place. And the U.S. said, "Oh, we're arresting you for bank fraud," but that wasn't in the original indictment, was it?
It wasn't, and I think that's why there's just so much confusion going on here. And again, like you said, I mean, this is Huawei's obviously a Chinese company. I mean, even in Canada, they do have these trade regulations with Iran, and I think it does go back. I think the big piece of information for this case is this PowerPoint presentation that Meng gave in to an HSBC executive, and their allegation, of course, is that she misled the relationship of Huawei with Skycom, and essentially pressured or misled HSBC to do a financial transaction to Iran, which would have been illegal. But I mean, it just comes across as there's really not a lot of substantial evidence in this case. And I mean, even a lot of, it was funny, I was talking to the police officers yesterday, and even they gave the impression, well, we have to listen to the United States because of our extradition law, but it just seems like this is we're almost doing the dirty work of the U.S. government, just trying to help them take down this person.
Was there any mention yet of the fact that HSBC was awaiting basically final judgment in regard to their $881 million money laundering scheme that they had with a number of drug cartels from
That's right.
Mexico? Has this been discussed in the court?
Not yet. Not yet. The proceedings the last few days have really just been completely focused on the the relationship between RCMP and Canadian Border Services, and how that arrest went. The big thing was, of course, is that Meng was actually detained in secondary, so she wasn't allowed to clear customs. She was detained before she was arrested. She had her devices confiscated. She had to write down the passwords to those devices. They had admitted that they made a mistake, and somehow the passwords and the devices were then given accidentally, over to the police. So it's just really hard to.
Accidentally? I mean,
It's just
how
hard.
how does that happen accidentally?
It just doesn't. It just
I
doesn't
mean,
make sense at,
I
at
mean,
all.
wait a second, but I understand. My understanding is you watch all these police. I was a prosecutor, defense attorney.
Yeah.
Everything that is taken. I mean, didn't he testify that he put everything into secure bags so that these devices couldn't be erased remotely? So how can
Exactly.
you accidentally give all that information to somebody? Did it like fall out of his pants pocket, or I mean, this was a laptop and some phones, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they had a secure device, that you were not able to, erase data from once you put that, once you put this in this special bag of theirs. But I mean, the thing was that she
Ferreting
was
bag.
also quite, yeah, and she was questioned for 3 hours, before she was arrested, which she had no access to an attorney. So I think it was really, the defense attorney was really stating, look at all of these actions, are certainly violating her rights. And, you had a clear, you also, you knew that you could have arrested her, but you didn't. You let Canadian Border Services essentially get her, detain her, question her for 3 hours without an attorney for the sole purpose of getting access to those devices. And, he had said, there was, we wanted to let Canadian Border Services do their thing because this is their jurisdiction. The airport is their thing. And, they even went back to emails and text messages the night before between both parties, RCMP and the Canadian Border Services. And they said, look, you have communication. It wasn't like you were confused on what to do. You had meetings, you had emails, you had texts. You knew exactly what was going to happen. You formulated a plan beforehand on how you were going to do.
Obviously, the American election is in play. Donald Trump does not look in a winning position. Based on that, has anybody discussed the fact that there might be a radical change in Washington about how they want to do this? Because, to some people here in China, it looks like she was just seized as, in essence, a hostage, as leverage in this game that the U.S. is playing with China, and that Huawei is part of that. And that, in essence, she was just, taken for ransom to leverage her father, who is the head of Huawei, and also in turn to leverage China. Is there any talk about that?
There's no talk on that specifically. I mean, I know that is the feeling that many people get surrounding this case, given the allegations and really the lack of substantial evidence, in these charges going against Meng. I think many people, do understand that. Donald Trump himself has said that, Meng is the Ivanka Trump of China. Obviously, she's a very high-profile figure in China, and just to have her as this political pawn, if you will, in this grand game of chess against the United States and China, is certainly an advantage to America. There is no talk about, obviously, we're less than, a week away from this new election in America. We potentially could see a very big change. Biden is leading the polls. However, I think, given America, anything can happen. We saw it in 2016. So we don't know. There's just so much uncertainty, with that going forward. I know here in Canada, though, I would say that the overall sentiment for many Canadians here is the fact that they don't like to be stuck in the middle. Obviously, they have two Canadians that are arrested in China at the moment. Obviously, that is just a complete retaliation. I do fully believe that as soon as Meng is released, these Canadians will also be released. But Canada just really feels stuck in the middle. And I know a lot of Canadians are not happy about this. If United States has, an issue with China, they would rather just see United States deal with China. Don't involve us in the middle. And I think that's the overall sentiment here.
No, I can see that. I can also see that Donald Trump would react rather strongly, as he says, to if Ivanka was suddenly hauled off an airplane and placed in Chinese custody, whether or not she had some places there. So,
Absolutely.
how do you feel this is going to turn out? Are they going to reach a threshold where you think that, I know there's a couple more witnesses out there, but this first day has been really very productive for the defense in showing that there's some very, very strange things going on. This guy seems to think this is a high profile case, yet can't remember anything anymore and things like that. Is this working towards the defense's group, or do you think this is just a regular guy doing his job and he forgets things?
I think I have a feeling that it's working in the defense's favor in the sense that, you can see, there's so much evidence against this. And I believe that, I think everybody here, we're hoping that the Canadian legal system, will prevail and that justice will prevail for Meng. She will be released, from these charges. Again, I think, it's just the way that they handled these things was just, it's a clear violation of her rights. You cannot detain somebody, without access to a lawyer, subject them to questions, get their devices, get their passwords, all of these things. It's a clear violation of rights. There's no way you can debate against that. I think that's a huge, asset, for this defense team as they're, trying to prove her innocence. So, I think that is an advantage. However, I know that these processes take a very long time. I don't think we're going to see a definitive end to this anytime soon.
Okay. Chris, I really want to thank you for kind of clearing this up and giving us a kind of snapshot view of this first day. And I wish you well. And perhaps we will come back to you as the days come by to get your impressions of what's happening. In the meantime, Fantastic. Thank you.
My pleasure. Right. Thank you so much. All right. Take care. Yeah.